We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I'm gonna kiss me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, Doctor, help me.
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that's...
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're gonna make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
I'm Jeff Markin.
And I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And this is the American International Podcast.
On this podcast, we talk about movies from American International Pictures, one at a time.
We'll dive into the plots, recurring cast, and the cultural impact the films have had on the film industry and pop culture in general.
In our first episode, we're going to talk about AIP's first movie, The Fast and the Furious from 1954.
And this movie was actually made before AIP existed as a company. Its predecessor was American Releasing Corporation.
But we're going to include it anyways because this is regarded as the first movie from American International Pictures, despite them being called something else at the outset. So we thought we'd start here. It's a good movie to go with. I mean, you can't go wrong with the title, The Fast and the Furious. It's from a story by Roger Corman.
This was Roger Corman's third film as a producer.
He wrote the story, but he didn't write the screenplay. That was Gene Howell and Jerome Odlum.
And it was co-directed by star John Ireland and Edward Sampson.
Now, John Ireland's directing, and that was a condition for him to be in the movie as the star.
And this is Edward Sampson's only directorial credit, but previously he was editor on Monster from the Ocean Floor, which was Roger Corman's second production.
Gene Howell is actually in the movie in a bit part. She plays Sally.
So shall we get into the plot of this movie?
Yeah, because it starts off with a bang, I would say, literally.
Yeah, the opening shot is a truck careening off the edge of a cliff and rolling over several times and bursting into flames.
And that's exciting. But then it kind of goes downhill from there.
Well, no, the title comes up, The Fast and the Furious.
Okay.
And that's exciting too.
Yeah, it's a great title. And I wanted to call it Crash Out at first, but I think that didn't really test well.
So the title of Fast and the Furious, it kind of shows the high energy that AIP wanted to show themselves as a company. They wanted to do something different and exciting.
At some point, they noticed that nobody's making films for teenagers, and that became kind of their mission, is to service that 19-year-old male demographic. They were the first ones to recognize that girls will go see movies with guys, but guys won't see girl movies with their girlfriends. Younger people want to see teenage movies, but teenagers don't want to see kid movies. So they kind of had that formula where they would appeal directly to the teenage boy, and it really worked for them. But anyway, back to the movie. So after the exciting open, we see the title credits, but underneath that is some racing footage, which you'll come to learn actually is pulled from the end of the movie.
Yeah, I can't tell if it's additional footage or if it's actual footage from the film.
Well, I know there's one scene in particular that I do remember seeing a second time.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah. So then once that's over with, we see the actual beginning of the movie. And, the music gets kind of jaunty, and we see a blonde woman driving into a parking lot of a diner.
The Saddle Peak Lodge.
She's driving this really cool convertible Jaguar.
And she's immediately greeted by a character we learned his name, Bob Nielsen, played by Bruno VeSota, which is a name that we will see in several AIP movies.
Bruno VeSota is a name that will come up again in this podcast, I guarantee. Jeff, you say greeted, but I say accosted because he goes over to her and stands in front of her door so she can't get out. He's got his hand on the handle inside the car, and he's just brazenly hitting on her. But she's not having it, and she kind of deflects him, hurts his feelings, and then, it's time to...
And they go in together, too.
Yeah, they go in together to eat.
In the Saddle Peak Lodge. Now, the Saddle Peak Lodge is an actual restaurant located in Calabasas, California. And I haven't been... But I looked online, and it seems like it's more of a high-scale restaurant than the greasy dive it looks like in the film.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's got like 3 stools and 4 booths and no pineapple juice. And it's run by the delightful Wilma, who's kind of a mouthy, bleached blonde, brassy chick.
played by character actress Iris Adrian, who did not appear in any other projects for AIP.
I'm glad you're keeping score on this because I don't. I know we'll see a lot of these people again, especially Dorothy Malone, who's playing the blonde.
As we're going through this, I think it's going to be some of the fun is seeing the recurring characters, actors who you might not necessarily recognize, but we can go back, oh, that was the cop in this scene of this movie we watched before.
Yes, definitely, provided I take careful notes. Neglected to mention, the blonde is named Connie Adair. It doesn't really come out till later, but we should probably just say who people are. And there's another person in the diner. He's reading the paper. He's trying to kind of lay low from the looks of it. And that is John Ireland. And he is playing Frank Webster, a.k.a. Bill Myers. So there's a lot of banter back and forth about what people are ordering, and it doesn't matter because nobody eats anyways.
The story comes over the radio about escaped convict from a prison in Coachella. It doesn't come over the radio?
They're just talking about it. She brings it up. Like, hey, can you believe it? So the diner conversation is Wilma, telling them about this tale. It's about the accident that happened at the beginning of the movie.
So over the course of the conversation, Wilma brings up that a man has escaped from prison in Coachella. His name is Frank Webster, and the police are looking for him. And we learn that the truckers are looking for him too, because what he apparently did was run a trucker off the road and killed him. Well, killing him.
Look, he ran him off the road. The truck exploded. That's what killed him. He didn't go down there and strangle him.
So Connie places her order for an egg salad sandwich and pineapple juice. And the order for pineapple juice causes a bit of a ruckus because does this restaurant have pineapple juice?
Apparently not. Wilma disappears into the back for
she has to check.
Yeah, for a while. It takes a while. She's probably out there finding a pineapple off a tree and squeezing it.
So while she's gone, we learn more about the character of Connie and that car that she drove up in is a race car.
Because she's a racer. She's on her way to a race. She's just stopping for lunch, which she will never get.
And Frank Webster looks over his shoulder out the window at that car because you can tell a plan is formulating in his head.
Yeah, but he doesn't get to put that plan into action because Bob baits him with questions about the accident. Frank plays dumb. Bob pulls out a gun. Frank punches him. Bob goes down like a sack of potatoes. And then he grabs Connie and muscles her out of the diner.
And let's look at that a little closer, though. Bob starts questioning him about, I'm not even sure why.
He just wants to know about the accident.
He wants to know about the accident. Wants to know why he's in a hurry to leave.
Where's he from?
And where's he from? And he wants to see his ID. He pulls a gun on him and says he needs to see his ID. So Frank reaches for his ID, and then Bob attacks him before he has a chance to get it out.
Yeah, he was a little hasty.
He has a gun, but he just starts swinging at him, and then he gets knocked out immediately.
Well, he's not a designated law enforcement officer, but he's kind of acting like he has the...
Well, he's a truck driver, and the truckers have it in for this guy because he's killed one of their own.
Yeah, it's like vigilante justice happening here. So now Frank's got to go, and he needs a ride, and Connie's got a sweet, sweet ride. So he takes her, and instead of just, ditching her, he could have just had the car. But he knows that she's the race car driver, and she knows where to go for the race and how to register and all that. So he does kind of need her.
And his plan is to get to Mexico and escape the country. Because would they extradite somebody for running somebody off the road?
Well, it could have been intentional, I guess. Maybe they would. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not qualified to speak on this matter. The first things the cops investigate is to interview Wilma at the diner, who saw nothing, but leads them to believe that Connie and Frank were in on it together because, obviously, why else would she ask for pineapple juice?
Well, she had called the police because she saw Bob's body lying on the ground and assumed he had been murdered.
Yeah. She didn't check him for a pulse or anything or see if there's anything she could do to help him. She just assumed
he'd been shot. There was no gunshot.
Yeah. But, well, maybe she was in the basement looking for that damn juice.
So they come and question her and get her statement. And they're looking for a jalopy.
Because that's what she heard.
Because Wilma doesn't know cars.
No. Well, that's what Bob said. He jokingly referred to it as a jalopy. instead of a Jaguar.
Right. So the cops at this point don't know what they're looking for.
Right. So they don't look for anything, basically.
They just know it's a man and a woman in a car.
Doesn't really, to be fair, that narrows it down. Not at all.
And there's really no reason to suspect it's Frank Webster, except that that's what they were talking about when he left.
Right. Yeah.
They're all assuming this at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of jumping to conclusions. But they're right. So,
I mean, as an audience, we don't know that at that point either.
No, we find out. No, we find out, though. Like, as soon as he's in the car with her, then we find out who he is. Okay, so now they're on the lam.
And this is where the bulk of the movie happens, because it's almost a buddy picture, except that
they're not
one's
buddies.
a hostage. And if they were two guys, it would have been a buddy picture. But because it involves a kidnapping, it gives them a chance to bicker.
Yeah. Well, there is sort of like the sexual thing, too, that's happening.
Well, they have to have the opportunity to fall in love. That's what the story's about.
Yeah. Or you could call it like she falls into Stockholm Syndrome. Because they didn't have that back then, but it kind of goes that way. Because first they're fighting and she's like, I hate you. And he says, just hate me all the way to Mexico. And at some point, when they're pulled over, he like aggressively kisses her. And
well, she slaps him, which is what inspires the kiss.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't slap her back. You can't slap a woman.
No, but you can assault her. I mean,
yeah.
She's defending herself. Let's not argue about this. I mean, there's no way he's in the right.
I'm not saying he's in the right, but I'm saying this was his way of
shutting her up.
Yeah. She does talk too much.
Yeah, that's another thing. I like quiet women. Stay that way. So yeah, there is this tension between them, and that's just me saying that I recognize that it's supposed to be this sort of like building sexual tension, but
it was a different time.
Okay, it was a different time, and the movie is definitely going that way. You can see it. There's not that dynamic where he's like tying her up and telling her to shut up or he'll kill her. He's just kind of driving around like she's the missus and she's always nagging at him, and so they argue all the time about how he drives and when they should stop, and she's hungry. And it's just like constant like nagging at each other.
And he's anxious to get to where he's going, but he keeps stopping. He stops because he needs to look at a map. He stops to look at the map for directions. And she doesn't try to escape at that point.
Where would she go, though? I mean, you think about it. They're out in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, I think she goes as far as to try to unlock the door, and that's as far as she gets, but he stops her. But
there is one point later where you notice that he's like tying her to the steering wheel. I don't know if she's tied up at that point. But
they do have to stop for fuel.
Yeah, that was a good scene. Because she tries to escape out the ladies' room window, but she takes so gosh darn long to do it that he catches her easily.
There's a stack of tires leading all the way up to the window.
Yeah.
And they're really bouncy because she's like checking their buoyancy.
It's like she doesn't want to get her skirt dirty because she knows she's going to mess up her, she's going to scuff her shoes or something if she goes out that window.
And she takes so long eventually. He just walks back there to catch her in the act.
He's just like, ugh, get back in the car.
So he pays his $4 to fill up his tank, and then and then they're back off.
Jeff, that's $4,000 in today's money.
And they get stopped
several times, don't they?
They come across a number of policemen during the trip to the race.
And every time the police just kind of like biff it. They don't catch him. They don't even try. They don't ask for ID. They don't say, you're not Frank Webster, are you? They just let them go every time. Whether it's a police blockade or they pull them over because the taillight's out or whatever. Well,
the first time that they get pulled over, he's driving down the road, sees the cops, does a U-turn in front of them.
Yeah, that's not suspicious.
And so the motorcycle cop will chase him. And Frank's not going to stop. So Connie pulls the key on the ignition, forcing the car to stop. And the cop catches up to them and lets them know that they have a taillight out. And that he thought they were running away from them. So he's glad that they stopped because then obviously they weren't. And have a nice day.
That's right. I think he gets razzed later for letting them go.
Well, at this point, they don't even know a car to look for. They just know they're looking for a guy. So going back to Bob is recovering in the hospital.
Yeah.
And it's a really homey-looking hospital.
It does look like somebody's bedroom.
It's got a nice quilt on the bed and a reading light on the
headboard.
The wooden
on
headboard.
The bed. Yeah. The cops are trying to like pump him for information, but he's not even conscious.
The doctor and the
nurse,
detective sergeant, are trying to question him. He wakes up momentarily, but they lose him again before they get to. They go back later and do get one word out of him. Jag.
It's a jaguar.
So after a little deliberation, they figure out that it must be a jaguar they're looking for.
No, I don't. I say jaguar. Do you say?
I say jaguar. Yeah.
Okay.
But for the purpose of the film, it's jaguar.
The cops aren't too bright. I just have to conclude that because they're never within any danger of being caught by the police. I don't know why he's running so hard and so fast. And in fact, he stops running at some point and then just do the road race.
There's a police blockade where they're letting people go into the race and make sure that Frank Webster is not among them.
Yeah, that's what you think. But he just says, I'm here with my wife for the race. And they're like, yeah, okay. And, they're
looking for a guy who's alone and he's not. So,
yeah, but they know he's not alone because that's the one thing they do know is that whether or not she's his accomplice, she's with him unless he ditched her.
And so they get past the blockade and go to enter the race.
Yeah. And here it gets really boring because nobody's really doing anything. They have to qualify for the race. Then they have to.
Well, they have to register first, which is interesting because the registrar has a sandwich.
Yes. And Connie is just starving at this point.
She ordered that sandwich at the Saddle Peak Lodge, but she had to leave before it was brought out to her. So she hasn't had a chance to really eat anything.
Who knows when she last ate? She may not have had anything
she hasn't eaten.
Since.
So
Maybe she skipped breakfast.
She's drooling over this guy's sandwich, and he has another.
But Frank won't let her eat. Frank will not let her eat for quite some time, and he's in control here of her. See, that's what they do. That's how they get you on your side. They brainwash you.
Yeah, not only that, but it turns out that the race is closed to women drivers.
Yeah, they just decided the night before. Oh, sorry, lady, you came all the way out here.
The course is too dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
So Frank is going to have to run this race under his pseudonym of Bill Myers because he can't register as Frank Webster because that would raise a few red flags.
But he does have ID as Bill Myers, so he passes that test. I think he had to show that to the cops too at one point, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When he passed it, when he got through the blockade and, I'm Bill Myers, this is my wife.
And at this point, the movie is going nowhere. We get to meet a lot of Connie's friends and people.
Yeah, her racing friends like Faber, who is so Bruce Carlisle, who's like her just racing pal. I think he kind of likes her, but
and there's not much going on at this point in the film. They have to qualify, they race, and everything that Frank says and does makes everyone suspicious.
But nobody does anything
because he's not the kind of guy that they would expect Connie to be hanging out with.
Right. I mean, they say that you don't look like a race car driver, but they don't, they don't ever take it any further.
No, you look more like a truck driver.
Very astute observation. They finally get lunch. So she takes him off to this secluded house, and I guess kind of an estate almost. And he pulls out a sandwich from his pocket where apparently it's been like moldering all day. And she's so hungry, she eats it. She's starving. And at that point, he tells her that the accident wasn't his fault. The truck drivers are trying to kill him, and that's why he can't go back. That's why he had to escape from jail. And he was just driving defensively, and the other guy, ended up going up the road because he was trying to run Frank off the road. So, she starts to soften a little bit towards him. And the weird thing is that all this qualifying stuff happens on one day, and then they have to spend the night because the race is the next day. And while they're out spending the night, he kind of hauls her away from all of her friends and drags her through the woods and locks her in this cabin. He gives her another one of those unasked for kisses, except for now she's kind of into
reciprocating a little.
Yeah, she's kind of into it. Then
it fades to black.
Yeah, it fades to black.
And you have to use your imagination of what might be happening at this time.
Right. But when we come back the next morning, they're still clothed, but who knows?
Well, it's the 50s.
Yeah. But it's not separate beds. So
Well, they're on the floor.
well, it's not separate floors. They're snuggled together. She's kind of very lovey-dovey. He's still kind of a gruff jerk because he leaves and locks her in.
Well, and she talks about maybe he should consider turning himself in.
He doesn't want any part of that.
Because it wasn't something he did on purpose.
Right. But
what jury would convict him of? But he had already been convicted of this. So,
well, no, he just was arrested, right?
He escaped from prison, so I don't know.
It's like pre-trial, pre-sentencing or something. Pre-trial. You still go to jail when you get arrested, whether or not you've been convicted.
Yeah, but I thought he escaped from prison, not jail.
Oh, I don't know. I have to go back. At any rate, he knows that he's not going to get away with this. So he locks her in the cabin.
He's still determined to get to Mexico, so it's time to race.
Yeah. And that's where that footage from the beginning kind of comes back into play.
They drive,
fast.
and they drive fast and furious, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Well, you can see it's convertible, so they can like come up right next to each other and kind of like give each other a look like, hey, I'm going to screw you over and try to run them off the road.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe in the 50s it seemed Fast and Furious, but it's kind of slow and tedious.
And dusty.
And really dusty, yeah.
So meanwhile, back at the cabin, Connie's yelling for help. Nobody can hear her, so she starts a fire. I guess she has like tinder and matches.
Well, she has matches, but she threw away her matches earlier in the film.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, a girl probably wants to carry more than one.
Maybe there's probably a fireplace in there, and there's probably matches sitting around. Let's go with that. Let's just say the filmmakers knew what they were doing.
Sure. We'll never get to the end of the movie if we start picking it apart. So she starts a fire, and that gets seen. So the smoke gets seen. She gets rescued.
By an uncredited Jonathan Hayes.
Oh, right. Who is another actor that is part of the AIP stable of actors?
More of a Corman stable of actors.
Oh, he's a Corman actor. Oh, okay. So he takes her to a phone. She calls the police, tells them exactly where to find Frank Webster, and
and he's innocent.
Yeah. And they're probably like, oh, let me just jot that down. Okay, sure. We won't arrest him now. You say he's innocent?
He's innocent, but he broke out of jail.
Kidnapped,
assaulted.
Assaulted many people. He's traveling around under false identity. I think he's still in for a rap sheet, no matter what. Okay, so
it's time to wrap up the movie.
Yeah, he's racing against Faber. Like they're like neck and neck. Faber drives off the road into a tree.
And he stops, and Frank stops to help.
He didn't have to.
He could have gone off to Mexico.
Scot-free.
But he's a friend of Connie, so I guess he felt obligated to help.
Or maybe he's just a decent human being. Maybe that's what we're supposed to take away from it.
Yeah, you get that feeling throughout the entire film that he's really a decent guy.
Oh, yeah. He's just misunderstood. Okay, so in the meantime, Connie has requisitioned a car from one of her other friends, and she is caught up to him despite having a significant head start. She manages to arrive like right behind them when this happens. And
Frank says, I'm going to turn myself in and we'll fight this because you're worth staying in America for.
It was a different time. And that's it. That's the end. They were fast, they were furious, and now they're gone. And we're back talking about The Fast and the Furious. Before this movie, Corman had never directed. But since he set up some of the second unit race footage in this movie, it made him realize that he wanted to direct.
And this movie was acquired by American Releasing Corporation. There was actually a bidding war for it. And they won because they offered Corman a 3-picture deal.
Yeah, so they both won. I mean, the Samuel Arkoff and James Nicholson got to start their company, and Roger Corman got the seed money he needed to do 3 more movies.
The next movie that he would do for ARC would be Five Guns West, which was Roger Corman's directorial debut.
Yeah, so he got what he wanted. You might know that there's another set of movies that are titled The Fast and the Furious, and That's actually not a coincidence. The director of that movie didn't have a title for it yet, and he watched a documentary on American International Pictures, and this being their first movie, that came up, and then he was like, I must have it. And he actually had to negotiate with Roger Corman to get that title. What he says is he traded stock footage for the rights to the title. Roger Corman, I don't know what he thinks happened, but he doesn't think it happened that way. Poor Dorothy Malone, she was kind of between agents when they made this movie. And so she kind of had to do it for whatever peanuts they had to offer her. The whole movie was only made for $60,000. Roger Corman got the money. He spent his own money, but it was given to him by producer Robert Lippert. Corman's company was Palo Alto Productions. And Lippert gave him the money for his movie Monster from the Ocean Floor. So this movie took in $250,000 in 1954 money. What would that be today?
That'd be about $2.7 million in today's money.
And, that's not Marvel money, but still, compared to what they spent on it, that is a very good return on investment.
The $60,000 being about $600,000.
Yeah. Any way you slice it, they made way more money than they spent. And that's got to feel good when you're doing production.
Especially for what is your first film as a releasing company.
Yeah. You would expect to kind of have to build your way up to success. And they kind of started successful from the outset.
And that helped a lot because they had offered Corman that 3-picture deal and they didn't necessarily have the money to finance 3 pictures. So.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of we'll borrow money to make this work. And
so there was a bit of a gamble. So it definitely worked out for them.
Did you like the movie?
I did. I've seen it, I don't know how many times now. The first time I saw it, I wasn't really impressed. I went with the slow and tedious title. But upon my second, third viewings for preparing for this episode, I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoy it more every time. And I might just watch it again someday. I might be in the mood to check this one out again.
For me, the movie is 73 minutes long. It feels longer. Some of the scenes just do really drag on too long. For something called Fast and the Furious, it should feel like fast all the time. And it doesn't. But I think the characters are likable. I may not be a big fan of sort of the sexual dynamics that are happening between hostage and hostage taker. According to Wikipedia, their mutual struggle caused them to fall in love. But it's not really a mutual struggle when somebody has kidnapped you. That's sort of like a one-sided struggle. So I'm not a huge fan of that. But if I turn my 2023 brain off and just watch it, I do like them together. They have this sort of like enjoyable banter.
I don't know if I like them together, but I can understand them being together because women like the bad boy, and he is definitely a bad boy.
He's kind of like a bad man, though. He goes beyond bad boy to like unpleasant man. But, if you can look past that, and his gruff exterior and his gruff actions and his criminal actions, and
he's got an attitude.
Yeah, he's got sort of a put upon attitude. But, he was innocent to begin with. So
yeah, he had a run of bad luck.
Yeah.
He didn't purposefully run somebody off the road.
No, he didn't.
It happened and someone died, which is tragic.
Right. But that
person...
person...
somehow he got caught. So I don't even understand.
Well, the other person couldn't testify. So it was just his word.
Well, no. How did they even know was there witnesses?
Oh, I don't know. We're not given to know how this transpired. We go from, the accident happens to Frank is run away from custody.
It seemed to be a pretty abandoned road for the most part. So I don't know.
Were there other truckers maybe that maybe turned
I guess we could
in?
have to make that assumption that there was somebody saw it.
Yeah, maybe it was a convoy.
Got a license plate.
No, I wouldn't say that this was a bad movie. I thought it was fun.
So we've created a 3-tier rating system, AIP, to rate these films.
A is for awesome.
I is for intermediate.
And P is for pathetic.
It's important that you're offsetting me for this because I love movies in general. So you can help keep me more grounded so that I don't just give all these an awesome.
Yeah. But sometimes when I rate movies, it's just like, well, how does this make me feel? And a lot of times it's not based on whether it was a competently executed, well-scripted, well-acted movie,
Well, for AIP movies in general, I don't think we can look at because they weren't trying to win awards.
That's true.
They were created to make money and entertain.
And a lot of times the title came before the actual plot, script, cast of the movie. You know, they come up with a fantastic title and then they have to make the movie that goes with it. That's not the case for this movie. But yeah, so for an AIP movie, awesome is in the eye of the beholder. It may be awesome because the sets were so terrible and the acting was so clunky, but it was a fun experience. So
how are you rating it?
I'm rating it intermediate because it doesn't reach the level of awesome that the title promises.
I would agree with intermediate. It's not a great movie, and it's got too many slow parts, really, to keep you entertained the whole time.
Mm-hmm. For a racing movie? For
a movie, yeah. And Fast and Furious is such an amazing title, and it just gives an air of excitement that the movie never really delivers on.
Right. But you can't go pathetic because, you know, it's the cast is good.
It's got a great cast. It was fun.
Yeah.
Even when it's boring, because you know that it's going to end at that point. Even at the boring parts, because you know it's going to continue. And the interaction between the two leads is what keeps you watching.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If they had, you know, like no chemistry, negative chemistry, it would be a totally different movie because there really is nothing else to recommend it, you know, besides their interaction, their story, the way they come together. Yeah, so I think that about wraps up our look at Fast
and Furious episode.
Our look at the Fast and Furious 1954. How can we watch this movie, Jeff, if somebody wants to experience it for themselves?
Well, this is a film that has fallen into public domain, so it's available everywhere. You can watch it on YouTube. Several DVD companies have released it because of that, because of its public domain status. It's currently streaming on Paramount Plus.
Well, that's great. And we'll include that information in the show notes, as well as our social media information, how to find us on the interwebs. I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin. And we'll meet you at the drive-in. Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.